All right, hello. We're back on the Facebook label page, and today I'm super stoked that we don't have a Musicto curator, but we have a well-established curator, Mr. Tim D'Agostino. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm glad to be here. So thanks for hosting me.
No, it's a pleasure. Um, why don't you? How did we meet? What was that? What was that interaction? How did our paths cross? Tell me that.
So I initially reached out to you because I was looking at building a network of curators. Having been in this business for two, 3 years now, depending on how you want to look at it. I've been getting a lot of artists reaching out to me, and I realized, a lot of these artists I can't help myself, but it'd be awesome if I could send them the right direction to a curator who could help them out better than I could, whether it be because of the genre they wanted to promote or different kinds of promotion they were looking into. So for me to have a network to reach out to push different queries and stuff that people had come to me about, I thought that'd be an awesome thing to do. And I realized Musicto was, I didn't really know what Musicto was at the time, but we reached out and then got talking, and this is, we're here today. So
it's really interesting to me because your playlist, give us the name of the playlist.
Freestyle beats and instrumentals.
Right. And how many subscribers do you have currently?
Just under 22,000. I might be breaking that today, actually. So,
I mean, that's awesome. So, tell us about how that started. When did it start? What year did you start? And what's been your journey from there to here to get to where you're currently at?
Sure. So I created this playlist 5 years ago now when I was in high school. I used to freestyle rap with my friends. So I just did it on the side for fun. Nothing really came of it until one winter I woke up one morning and realized my playlist I'd created just for myself had a couple hundred followers. And I thought that was odd, but I didn't really think much of it and just continued to curate the playlist as I normally would. And everything just kind of piled up from there. Followers continued to stack up. And one day a artist from Germany had reached out to me and asked if I could throw his beats on my playlist. And he offered to pay me as well. And, that's a whole nother discussion. But it was at that moment I realized, this playlist has power. And I can influence a lot of people who are following it. So back then it was just a couple thousand. Now I'm at over 20, just about 22,000 followers. I'm reaching a pretty broad community of people. And I don't know what the use case of the playlist is, but it's pretty incredible to see where it is today. And I haven't really done much promoting of the playlist myself. It's just been word of mouth, I imagine, among followers who have seen it while searching on Spotify.
So you started what, 2013, 2014?
That's right. Yep.
And when you say you curated the list, what does that mean when you say you curate the list?
I would simply put, I would just find tracks that I liked and added them. I didn't do much removal. I intended the playlist to be more of a shuffle playlist. The more songs, the better. Have a lot of variety. You can just skip through to whatever you're feeling that day. Whereas I know a lot of playlists today, you want to max it out at 20 or 30 songs and switch that up weekly. That wasn't how I curated, and that's not really how I curate today, just because of how I originally built my playlist and gained my followers. I think people are looking for that out of my playlist.
So where do you find the music from?
Well, back then, 2 years ago, I found it all through my own searching on Spotify. But today, I've got a website set up, and I have artists reaching out to me through social media. And I find most of my music that way now. Most people are coming to me rather than me doing the searching myself, which seems to work out pretty well. And, believe it or not, Spotify still has those algorithms that are promoting music and pushing it my way through Discover Weekly and stuff. So I get some music through there, which I really like. but for the most part, it's people reaching out to me.
So go back to the beginning. How much time of your week, like in minutes or hours, were you spending on your playlist, back when you first started it?
I think it varied. When I first started, I didn't even consciously think about that. I probably would spend an hour a week at most, but today I'm probably spending upwards of 5 to 10 hours, depending on how much I want to commit to it and what my new music search looks like and how many people have reached out to me. So, and I'm always trying to clean up the playlist as well. So.
And what was the growth curve in terms of subscribers? Was it a linear progression, or how did that work?
Believe it or not, it's been pretty steady over the last couple of years. So I'm averaging just over 650 followers a month, and just about 20 to 22 followers a day.
And that's all in Spotify. The list just exists on Spotify, yeah?
That's correct.
So are you familiar with Sounds Good and the tools that can distribute across all the different platforms?
I am not, actually, believe it or not.
Okay, well, we'll drop the link down there. We use a tool called Sounds Good that it's out of Paris. It's a French firm. And you can take your Spotify playlist link and you can drop it into Sounds Good, and it will automatically populate that playlist across Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Napster and Qobuz and Deezer. And I think they have Amazon and Tidal on their dev plan. So,
wow.
It's having the playlist everywhere. And it's free, amazingly enough. So, all right. So you're now sitting here and you've got 20,000 subscribers. You've now got a website. How many tracks are you getting sent a week? What's your kind of...
Typically, I'm looking at 30 tracks a week, maybe 40 tracks a week. And of those 30 or 40 tracks, probably about 15 or 16 different artists. So it's a lot to go through. And then on the side, I also do some playlist push work because I'm a registered curator on Playlist Push. So
because this is the thing, I mean, this is the challenge that we have. We have thousands of track subs coming through on Musicto a month. My Grieve 2 playlist gets about 3 or 4, sometimes 6 or 7 tracks a day, submitted. And I don't have the time to listen to everything. How do you address that?
I force myself to sit down. It's believe it or not, a year ago this used to be a lot of fun for me, but now it's starting to become work, believe it or not. And I still love it at its core, but when the volume continues to increase, it's really hard to sit down because you've got 3 hours ahead of you of just listening to tracks, many of which are not good. So it's filtering through a lot of trash. But when you find the song that's golden and that you want to promote, it's a really good feeling. So I still love doing it, but it's becoming more and more demanding.
So I think the stats out of Submit Hub, or most curators listen to a track for no more than 5 seconds, or some bizarre. I mean, how long do you give a track?
It depends. I think most of the time, I try to give it at least half of the track's length, but for a lot of the tracks I receive, I can tell right off the bat what the audio quality is like, and if it doesn't meet a certain standard, which is just my personal standard. So I don't really have a metric to give you, but if it doesn't meet that standard, I immediately send feedback to the artist who sent me the track, saying they need to improve the quality of their track, the audio quality or the vocal quality, whatever it may be, before they can be considered for track placement on my playlist. So that may be 15, 20 seconds, but typically about half the track is what I aim for.
So let's have the feedback discussion. Should playlist curators be giving artists feedback?
I think it's an interesting question. I don't give as much feedback as I used to. I actually have an automated email now just because of how many requests I'm getting. But if an artist reaches out to me for feedback specifically, I do provide them that feedback, whether it's a sentence or two. I think if they care enough to hear my opinion, I'll give it to them. Now, tools like playlist push and stuff, I think are, on average, artists are getting really bad feedback. And so I would not recommend that to an artist, even though I do find some tracks through there. The feedback, I imagine, is really poor because people don't put a lot of effort into it. So,
what's the playlist push economic model?
What's their economic model?
Yeah,
I believe it's an artist pays playlist push to, they give them a budget, so you can choose your budget, whether it's $500 or $1,500. And they will push out your track or multiple tracks to registered curators who are a part of their platform. These curators typically have to meet certain requirements, whether it be active listener rates of their playlists, minimum follower counts, and they need to be continuously giving good feedback. Good feedback, it's all subjective. But so Playlist Push will push out these tracks to artists. They give it a review. Typically 2 or 3 sentences, maybe a bit longer, a 5-star rating, and then they receive money for every track they review as a curator.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea in theory. I don't think it works in practice, and that is solely because of money being an incentive. You're not. It's really easy to chase after a quick $6 or $7 as a curator. Now, if it was much less, if it was 30 or 40 cents, you probably wouldn't get as many curators on the platform, but the curators on the platform would be more dedicated because it wouldn't be an incentive for money. It'd be an incentive to actually help growing artists.
See, this is the thing that we as curators have. The job that we are doing is we are spending our time and identifying tracks so that when people choose to listen to our playlists, they don't waste their time listening to crap. So how does society reward you for that? I'm not a fan of putting a payment, a gate to get curators to listen. I mean, it's really treading the ragged line of Spotify's terms and conditions as well, isn't it? And this point where it's now, we're paying for them to listen, not to put on the list. It just feels weird to me, but I don't know if what is the solution? As your playlist gets bigger and you get up to 40,000 subscribers, and now you're getting 150 tracks a week, how are you going to cope with that? Have you had any thoughts on that?
Well, I think we had a discussion a couple weeks ago, and you had mentioned that to get a submission through to you, you've made it increasingly more difficult. And right now, my track submissions are really, really simple. It requires a link to the song, some additional comments if you'd like, a link to the artist's social media, and then an artist name. So that can be done in about 30 seconds, and they can send off 20 tracks if they'd like in no time. But if you actually require the artist to put in a lot of effort for every individual track they submit, I think that will weed out a lot of the tracks that you'd be wasting your time listening to. And I think that's the best way to do it. I'm not sure there is any other way. Using money as a lock to get to the curator is, I feel bad because I use that service. But then again, I don't think it's all bad. I just think that if you're limiting artists to the money they have in their pocket, that's a slippery slope to fall on, because we're moving away from record labels. That's where us as curators are come in, and we can help these new artists to build their brand and get exposure without having to give up 70% of their royalties or without a huge upfront payment. So it defeats the whole purpose of the movement.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's two questions that I wanted to get back to. I'll come back to that one in a second. But so when I get featured on, let's say I've written this fantastic instrumental hip hop beat because I'm so dope, and I get it to you, and it's like awesome. You fall in love with it. So it gets at the top of. How does it work? Do I get at the top of your playlist? Because clearly that's primo position. What about social media? Is there any do I get any exposure out on the internet aside from inside Spotify?
So that's actually something I'm working on. I want to grow my presence on social media more. I think as a curator, that's of the utmost importance because you have so many artists and so many music listeners on social media that you can reach. You're really missing out on a huge target market if you're not on social media. But the way it works for my playlist right now is if I receive a submission that I like, there's different, I guess I break down the playlist into the top 20 or 30 track placements. So I'll split it up by the top 5 track placements, and 6 through 10, then 11 through 15, then 16 through 20. And just I think the better tracks go up to the top. Now, we can get into a discussion about charging for track placements and the morality and ethics of that if you'd like to. Because I think it's important for artists who are looking to get placed on playlists to know when that's fair and when it's not. So if you'd like, I can provide some advice on that. I would say to any artist out there, if a curator is asking you to pay for placements, you have to be really smart about the questions you ask before you go and give up your money, because it is your hard-earned money and you want to use it wisely. So number one, ask a lot of questions. How many impressions can you expect a day? Who is your core audience? What is your playlist growth like? Is it stagnant? Is it growing at a faster and faster rate? What is your follower retention rate? How many active listeners do you have? Things like that. But you also have to be careful to not get stuck in the trap of strictly looking at streams and the payment you'll receive back in streams. So if you're doing a 2-week placement or a month placement, don't just calculate the number of streams you'll expect back and say, that's the fair price. Because at the end of the day, your goal is to get exposure. As an artist, you would rather have a 30% increase in followers and monthly listeners than you would a 30% increase in streams, because the monthly listeners and the followers are going to be there to stay and the streams will come. So it's playing the long game as an artist.
So how much does it cost to get into the top 5 on take some arbitrary 20,000 strong playlist? Yeah. So let's take that. Typically, how much does it cost to get into the top 5?
I typically $40 for 2 weeks. However, that's the standard rate. People are willing to pay it. But if you're an artist looking to push your music consistently, that rate, negotiation can happen with curators. So right. You could be paying $10 for 2 weeks rather than $40 if you're pushing out a track every single week. And that's beneficial for both the curator and the artist. I think you just have to be, like I said, cautious of how much you're willing to pay. But $40 in the top 5. And then if you negotiate, you could probably work out a better deal as well. But
I have no issue with the morality of money and music. Hell, it's called the music business, isn't it?
Yeah.
And curators who are staking claim for this this land of playlists, you've put in a crapload of time, haven't you? And you continue to put in a crapload of time, and society does need to not recompense you, but there is a trade-off in that. And maybe this is the future. Maybe, if you're an artist, instead of printing out flyers, distributing around, maybe one of your costs is playlist placement, and that's just how the world's going to work. What do you think of that?
Well, undoubtedly playlists are replacing radio, and it's the new way in which people find new music. Now, again, these streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, they're developing these algorithms as well that will push out new music to artists based on their tastes. So as an artist, you're going to grow the fastest if you can get yourself on a variety of playlists that will increase your exposure, get you put into these algorithms that will push you out even further at no cost. And it seems like from the artists I've worked with, it's just exponential from there. But you need to know how to work the system in order to at least get your foot in the door.
Right, it's the last mile problem. I mean, I think you and I were talking. The last figure I heard was 5,000 streams a day. It was enough to get you picked up onto Discover Weekly by genre. And maybe it's not 5,000 streams anymore. Maybe it's 100 ads or downloads, because Spotify are now moving more to the engagement metric rather than just the streaming metric. But it's how, I mean, you've got 20,000 subs. If I'm at the top of your list, how many of my streams am I getting in a day?
You can expect to see anywhere between 700 and 1,000 streams a day. I think the average is around 800 now. And in a 2-week period, you can expect around 11,000 monthly listeners, actually. So
in a year's time, if you continue, are you seeing any slight acceleration in growth because you're getting bigger? And of course, you got the bigger the dynamic is, you've got more. Are you seeing a slight acceleration in growth?
There's some slight growth in terms of like the actual growth percentage I'm experiencing monthly is going up at a very small rate. It's not enough that I'm concerned about it or doing anything too different right now to adjust for that. But if I launch more stuff out on social media, I think that I will see a difference in that growth rate. And so I need to be prepared for it to keep those followers or those to make sure that the first impression I make on someone seeing the playlist is a good one.
Absolutely. So what's the future for what's your future with the playlist? Are you going to build on this playlist? Are you going to have more playlists? And how do you see the next few years going?
So it's a really funny answer, because I have a whole tool bag of playlists, pretty much every genre, and every taste, every like. I have a playlist for it. Now, I haven't seen the playlist growth, and I'm still trying to figure out why. I think part of it is when I entered the market 5 years ago in 2013, it wasn't as saturated. So I was able to hook on to this niche market, and the playlist just grew from there. But today, I'm developing these new playlists, and I'm curating them all the time because I'm always listening to new music, and I pretty much listen to every genre. I think they're pretty damn good playlists, but I just don't think anyone's seeing them. So it's a tough balance. I wish I could be a curator of more than one just large playlist, but it's really tough to get there now.
Yes, I mean, you were undoubtedly right time, right place. I mean, back in 2015, Spotify was still promoting independent lists, whereas now Spotify is only promoting Spotify branded lists. So yeah, you're definitely right time, right place. Yeah. But for us, it takes 2 freaking years of, publishing a track a week, sharing on social media to get to about 1,000 subscribers inside Spotify. You've got we have lists, 2-year-old lists that have got 12,000 social followers, across Facebook and Instagram and, Twitter, but like 600-700 subscribers inside Spotify, because it's insane to try and get that growth. But we're now beginning to see those lists start to accelerate a little bit. We grow at 10% growth every month in terms of streaming followers. But it's hard work, and it goes back to the monetization thing again, isn't it? I mean, you're doing this because you love it, but you're putting your time in, and now you have something of value. So what kind of interaction you getting from labels? Because you have something of value, don't you? I mean, what's the kind of conversations you're having?
I do. So over the last 2 years, I've actually had a couple record labels reach out to me. I forget the name of the record label 2 years ago, but when I had 10,000 followers, a record label from the UK had reached out to me asking to buy my playlist and buy my Spotify account. Now, I don't know the legality of that, but I obviously said no because I saw my playlist growing significantly, and I didn't want to give that up, especially to a record label who I knew was just going to use it for their own selfish benefit. So I said no then, and pretty recently I said no again to an individual artist who wanted to buy my playlist. And then now, in terms of to get back to your question about record labels, I actually just spoke to a record label from New York City, Bastard Jazz Records, and they were just looking to get more information from me as a curator as to how I've built my playlist, and if they're trying to promote for their own artists, what are some tips and tricks that they should be aware of when reaching out to curators. So it was a nice conversation. I think record labels are starting to build their own playlists as well, if they haven't already, because they realize the value of having a playlist, and they could throw a lot of money at promoting artists through playlists, but if they have their own, it opens a whole new world for them. So
yeah, I think they're a little late to the game, but so a couple more questions. How do I get on your list? What do you look for?
Right. I try to keep a good mix on my playlist, being that it's hip hop instrumentals and freestyle beats. There's nothing really that special because it's just instrumental tracks. But the new wave in rap and hip hop is trap music. So I've been trying to favor a lot of trap tracks recently, just because I'm trying to appeal to that new wave that's coming into the industry. But everything from lo-fi tracks and your classic early 2000 tracks, pretty much anything that you can rap over. That's what I'm looking for. So it's good quality, and can I rap over it? So typically when I'm listening to the tracks, I am rapping to myself, and that's kind of the metric I use. So there's no hard science behind it. It's more of, as you would know, it's kind of like, if it's music to my ears, then I'll add it to the list. So
it's so true. I have the music to write an essay to, and I'm probably going to pilfer some of the tracks on your list because it's instrumental music that doesn't have lyrics, so that when I'm writing, you don't have, there's some science that you don't want to be listening to words while you're working with your own. And I road test all of my tracks. Any track that makes it onto the essay writing list, I can guarantee you that I have been working to it and have gotten to a state of flow, which is what I look for when I'm writing or working. And I know that the track it's road tested. So it's really cool to hear you do exactly the same thing.
Yep.
You're not just sitting there going, oh, I'm going to throw this on it. And in the track sub, is there anything an artist can do to gain your attention to, listen to your track first? Listen to their track first?
It's a great question. Right off the bat, I can't think of anything. However, actually, I take that back. If an artist makes clear that he's actually a follower of the playlist and is able to prove that somehow, and I've had that a couple times where it's not just a fake, oh, I really love the playlist, can you add my track? But I've been a follower for a really long time. Here are some artists that you've had on here, and I'd really love to be a part of this playlist. It's gotten me to the point where I am today as an artist. So it's been an influence on my own music and whatnot. So when I see stuff like that, even if it's not genuine, it sounds pretty genuine, and I'll definitely favor that person, or at least it'll catch my attention to listen to their tracks first.
Our track sub form has got track name, artist name, link to the track. We ask them to give us an image and license, give us a license to use it on the website. And then we ask for a description of why the track is a good fit. And as I say, if I've got 30, 40 track subs, I'll go to my email folder where that comes in, and I open it. And if I don't see a good couple of sentences in the track description, I won't listen to the track because I just don't have the time. And if they haven't, I don't want to put a pay gate in front. I don't want to get them to follow the playlist. We asked them to follow the playlist, but we did that before. And what happens, and I think you get this on Playlist Push, you get a load of people who are subscribed to your list but don't really want to be there. They just wanted to pitch a track, so your engagement rate on your playlist goes down. So yeah, our approach is, look, if you want to get onto our list, you've got to spend a little bit of time. That's our currency, their time for our time. And it makes handling the tracks a lot easier. All right, so if there's one piece of advice that you would say to an artist, the one thing that if they leave this interview, knowing, what would it be?
Be kind to your curators, but don't be afraid to reach out. Try and find playlists where the curator is someone like myself who has a genuine passion for the particular music they're listening to. And if you're looking for advice on how to approach a situation, please feel free to reach out to my website. I'd be more than happy to answer questions on, whether or not a curator is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, whether it's someone you should be working with or not. Because I think there are a lot of good curators out there, but you don't want to get stuck with the bad apples.
Oh, no. We will put all the links down below. Tim, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, even if I was a little slow this morning. Stay on after we finish this, and we'll have a matter. We will share this around. You can find Tim. What's the name of the playlist again?
Freestyle Beats and Instrumentals.
20,000 subs. You can find it on Spotify, and you'll find him all over the internet soon as his social visibility goes through the roof. All right, Tim, take care. Thanks very much. Catch you all on the flip.